We are reading The Road to Paris, Chapter 35, Phone Call. A lot can happen in a year. Life can become normal, an address can become more than numbers on a piece of paper, and family can become more than just a word in the dictionary. Paris woke to the honeyed scent of lilacs wafting through her window. Her bedroom was tiny as ever, but the room seemed friendlier. It was no longer a strange place. It was hers. The room, the house, everyone under its roof, and even the scent of lilacs. All were hers now. Viola was also hers, but in an arm's length sort of way. Her birth mother had her life in the city, and Paris had her life in Ossining. She and Malcolm stayed connected through letters mostly. She wished that they were still together, but she was old enough to understand that wasn't a decision she got to make. Get up, lazy bones, Paris told herself, or you'll be late for the last week of school. She rolled out of bed and got ready for the day. The hours swam by, caught in the current of the ordinary. Class, lunch with Sienna, and the noisy car ride home with David punching her in the back seat. Before Paris could blink, it was dinner time, and her turn to lay out the knives and forks. Paris made a detour to the backyard. She clipped a few lilacs for the table and propped them up in a jelly jar full of water. The dash of color was exactly what the table needed. Dinner was spaghetti and meatballs, her favorite. She couldn't wait to dig in. First, though, she had to bow her head while Mr. Lincoln gave grace. Jordan kicked her under the table, being his usual pest of a little brother. Paris didn't give him away, but if looks could kill, let's just say her eyes were busy doing damage during that prayer. Amen, said Mr. Lincoln in his deep voice. Mrs. Lincoln spooned up the spaghetti while Paris retrieved the hot garlic bread from the oven. She was salivating by the time she finally settled back into her seat and dove into the mountain of spaghetti on her plate. That was when the phone rang. It was Viola. Paris took a bite of garlic bread, then went to the phone. Hi, she said. Paris hadn't heard from Viola in a long time, but she was okay with that. She'd given up being angry with her mom, or she'd be mad all the time. And what good would that do? Hello, sweetheart. How are you? Fine, said Paris, but we're eating dinner, Mom. I know, said Viola, and I know I haven't called in a while, and I'm sorry, but I have something important to tell you. Paris felt her throat tighten. Is it Malcolm? Is something wrong? No, Malcolm's fine, Viola assured her, but I am calling about Malcolm, and about you, and about me. It's something I've been working on for a while, for all of us, honey. What is it? Asked Paris, becoming impatient. I've gotten married again. His name is Marcus, and he can't wait to meet you. And Malcolm, of course. That's nice, said Paris. But what's that got to do with? Viola cut her off. We've got a great big apartment in Brooklyn, and I've been working hard to get your rooms ready for you. Isn't that great? Her words ran together. We can all be a family again, honey. You and Malcolm can move back to the city and live with Marcus and me. For good this time. No more foster homes, I promise. Prospect Park is right up the street, and there's a school nearby. I've checked, and I'm sure you'll like it. And the apartment is huge. Did I say that already? I probably did. I'm so excited. The thing is, now that I've straightened myself out, I really want you kids home with me. All you have to do is say yes, honey, if you want. Viola finally ran out of breath. She fell silent on the other end of the phone. Paris was stunned. After all this time, thought Paris. After all this time. I'm just supposed to drop everything and leave Ossining? Leave David, Jordan, and Erletta? Give up my choir, my friends? Give up Mom and Dad Lincoln? I guess Erletta was right. After all, she's the one kid who gets to stay. Paris slid to the floor, leaning her full weight against the kitchen cabinet. The phone cord swung out from the wall and set the handset banging loudly against the door jamb. "Hello, hello, are you still there?" said the teeny voice on the phone. "Paris, what's the matter?" asked Mr. Lincoln. "Oh, Lord, what did that woman say to her? James, help her up," Mrs. Lincoln said to Mr. Lincoln. "Hey, sis, stop fooling around and get up," said Jordan. "Yeah," said David. Paris looked over at her foster family. They were all speaking at once. She could tell because she saw their mouths moving. But for some reason, her ears weren't working. Paris couldn't hear a thing. For Paris, the rest of the evening was a blur. In a way, that was a special kind of blessing. Well, Paris got the shock of her life when her mother said she wanted her back. So Paris now has a decision to make. Is she going to stay with the Lincolns, or is she going to go with her birth mom? Well, we'll find out as we continue in The Road to Paris. So come back with me and let's read chapter 36 together. We are reading The Road to Paris, chapter 36, The Gamble. The next morning, for the first time ever, a grown-up asked Paris what she thought. "The decision is up to you," said Mrs. Lincoln. "If you want to move back to the city and live with your mother, we'll understand. But you know, you'll always have a home here, if you want it, Paris. This time, you choose," she said. Then she left Paris sitting on the edge of her bed, alone. "Choose what?" thought Paris. "How? The caseworker says I'm lucky, that most kids don't have a mother who wants them back. Plus, I'd get to live with Malcolm again. But how can I feel lucky? If I go back to the city, that means leaving here. And this is home now. And what about this new stepdad? What if she didn't like him? What if he didn't like her? What if she did turn her mother's offer down? What would that mean? Would Viola be out of her life for good? Did she want that? And what if it meant never seeing Malcolm again? Could she risk that?" Paris fell back on the bed and curled into a ball. She stayed that way for a long time, rocking herself and thinking. Jed padded into the room and lay at the foot of her bed. Somehow, he knew she needed the company. The light in the room shifted as noon approached. Paris sat up and looked around. She eyed the wardrobe, the small desk and chair, as well as the nightlight on the wall near the door, and she sighed. "Come here, Jed," she called to the collie. He barked and clambered onto the bed beside her. Paris stroked his back and let him lick her face. "Oof," she said, "you need a bath." But she didn't push the dog away. Instead, she laid her head against his hairy body and snuggled. Somehow, Paris made it through that day, and the next, and the one after that. She had a lot to think about, like how much she'd come to love the Lincolns, how she'd come to trust them, and to trust herself simply by being around them, and how close she felt to David and Jordan, and sometimes even Erletta. And she thought about Jolene's comment about her not being a real member of the Lincoln family. In the pit of her, Paris knew it was true. Somehow, she'd always be an outsider. Could the Lincolns' love change that? Then Paris thought about Malcolm and Viola. She thought about how great it would be to live with Malcolm again, and with Viola, whom she'd finally learned to forgive. She thought about how she hardly knew her own mother, really. And she wanted to. She needed to. It'd be a shame to keep her a stranger. Paris didn't know anything about her mom's new husband. What was it Mom Lincoln had told her? Judge each person by his own actions. Paris understood what that meant. She'd have to give this Marcus guy a chance. She'd keep an eye on him, though, and so would Malcolm. The caseworker says he's nice, thought Paris. Maybe he is. Paris spent a lot of time gazing at the photo of herself, sitting on Viola's lap beside Malcolm. She traced the brows, the chins, the dimpled cheeks, they all shared. And when she went to sleep each night, she prayed, asking God to tell her what to do. By the end of the week, Paris had made her decision. Well, Paris had a lot to think about, but she made her decision, and we're going to find out in our final chapter what her decision is. So stay with me for the conclusion of The Road to Paris. We are reading The Road to Paris, and this is the conclusion of our story, Chapter 37, Destinations Unlimited. Paris waved to the Lincolns through the train window, tears streaming down her cheek. She'd missed them more than sunshine, but she was wrapped up in their love, and she was taking it with her. Tarrytown, Dobbs Ferry, Riverdale. As Paris got closer to New York, she smiled to herself. Finally, she and Malcolm would be together again. She could hardly wait. There was no way for Paris to tell the future, but she was not afraid. Not anymore. The rough road she'd been on had led her to a stronger sense of herself. And though she was leaving the Lincoln home, she had their love to hold on to, as well as the lessons she'd learned while under their roof. Paris had learned to keep God in her pocket, and as long as she kept him close, she knew she'd be all right. Wow, this was a great story. Not exactly the ending I guess I was wanting, but can certainly understand because her mother and her brother are her family. But now so are the Lincolns. So I guess the author leaves us to kind of think about what direction this might take. And will she have a relationship with the Lincolns? I certainly hope so. But you can think of your own conclusions and your own thoughts about it. And if you like, share it with me on email. Pamela.ag@desotoisd.org. That's my email address. So I certainly enjoyed this. And if you want more information about our author, Nikki Grimes, you can certainly research it through our catalog, the DeSoto ISD catalog. So until next time, I just want to say happy reading and thanks for going on this journey with me, The Road to Paris.